Greetings, sisters and brothers. Hope you're doing well, whatever part of the world that you're located in. It's a beautiful day in Washington, D.C. today. The temperature must be, I would say, almost 70 degrees. I have a lot of work. As many of you know, I'm pursuing my PhD now in history at Howard University. And for anybody that is either working on a PhD or who has completed a PhD, you know what it entails. Your life involves waking up, taking a shower, getting something to eat if you remember, and then grabbing a book, reading, and writing. That is your life. Reading, writing, and then, of course, attending lectures and seminars. And I'm not complaining. I mean, this is the life that I chose. I love it. You know, as many of you know, I'd been teaching for several years as an adjunct professor, and I enjoy that tremendously as well at John Jay. I'm glad that I feel that I contributed somewhat to transforming the lives of some young people. What I loved about John Jay is that there's no restriction in terms of what I can teach, setting up my syllabus and selecting the readings. So I was able to expose students to Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, Steve Biko, Walter Rodney, Cheke Anta Diop, Professor John Henry Clark. You know, these great educators and leaders, right? Nelson Mandela, Winnie Mandela, Julius Nyerere, Sekou Touré, Modibo Keita. You know, these, and once they learn that Africans are not just passive people and have always resisted exploitation, enslavement, colonization, and neocolonialism of the 20th and 21st century, they have a better understanding of themselves as human beings. They understand the reason why parts of the world people enjoy tremendous wealth. Although, even within those countries where people enjoy tremendous wealth, such as the United States, the masses are actually relatively impoverished compared to the very rich elite. Of course, they would still be, in some respects, not all respects, doing better than many people in African countries. And they would also get to understand why African countries are impoverished. There's a difference. They're not poor. So when you read about poor African countries in The Economist or the New York Times or the BBC or CNN, that's propaganda. That's nonsense. They're not poor, but they are impoverished. There's a great difference. What does that mean? It means their wealth is being plundered. It's being sucked out. Their mineral resources, their natural resources, and taken overseas to the industrialized countries, and then sold back to them at tremendously inflated prices as manufactured products. So let me give you a typical example. Why should the Congolese be impoverished when the minerals from the Congo contribute to the computers manufactured around the world, the smartphones, other electronic equipment, Just think about that. It doesn't make sense. Why should people in Niger live in poverty when they produce the uranium that allows people in France to enjoy a high standard of living? You know, that's the neo-colonial arrangement that Africa has with the industrialized world. So once my students learn this, they are transformed. You can see their understanding of the world improve, of themselves, and their feeling toward themselves, right? That inferiority complex is now eliminated because they know that the condition of African impoverishment is not permanent. As Kwame Nkrumah said, it is it's a superficial poverty, right? It's a manufactured poverty that can be eliminated. And that's the importance of teaching. But today I also wanted to reflect on a couple of things here domestically in the United States and then in other parts of the world, Uganda specifically. So, part of the problem in the United States, and this is something that it just shows you how brilliant Julius Nyerere was. Many years ago, I think it was 1985, maybe after he'd already left the presidency, Nyerere was interviewed by a Western journalist. And Nyerere said, the United States and the rest of the world would be such a better place if the United States had an opposition party. And the journalist said, what do you mean, Mr. President? We have the Democrats and Republicans. And Nyerere said, that's the problem. They're both capitalist and they're both imperialist, you see? And Nyerere was 100% absolutely right. So here in the United States, do you really have a choice when you're dealing with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, right? The Republican Party, of course, are much more overtly racist in many of their positions and pronouncements, right? Demonizing African people, African descendants, demonizing Mexicans, demonizing immigrants, right? So the Democrats don't really use that explicit, very overtly racist language. But at the end of the day, remember, the Democrats felt compelled when Trump said he would build a wall, right, to prevent immigrants from coming in. The Democrats essentially said they would do the same thing as well, right? So the point is, there's hardly any choice. None of these parties represent the interest of the working people in this country. There is need for a working people's party in the United States. Both the Democrats and Republicans are the parties of the rich, and the political candidates all depend on contributions, corporate contributions, you see? So government controlled by corporations, who do you think the government is going to pay more attention to? The ordinary people or the corporations that contribute to their elections? The answer is obvious. I don't even need to complete that thought. But the overwhelming majority of people in this country are working people. Even the middle class, so-called middle class, eliminated. Most people need 2 or 3 jobs just to survive. Neither of these parties address the interests of people in those conditions. There's a need for a third party in the United States. And the problem is most people think like, oh, that's going to take a long time. Yes, it may take a few election cycles, but to leave it up to the Democrats and Republicans to solve the needs of the working people when both are not parties of the working people? That doesn't make sense. Why did Trump win? Because he said he would stand up for the working people. So is Elon Musk a working person? Yeah, obviously that was just propaganda that Trump was spewing in order to get elected. And it was successful, it worked, you see? But obviously you see his friends are the very wealthy elite, the multi-billionaires. So there's no question that there's a need for a working people's party. Now let me address very briefly Uganda, because as a Pan-African, I like to speak on on topics that impact most African people. You know? I hate just picking and focusing on one country. But Uganda is my birth country, and I'm very concerned by the political trend. Basically, Uganda's politics has been hijacked by the military under dictator General Yoweri Museveni, and in recent years by his son, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, right? Uganda is one of the youngest countries in the world. So Uganda held its last elections in 2021. And there's no question that Robert Kyagulanyi, aka Bobby Wine, defeated dictator Museveni overwhelmingly. But Museveni controls the army and the police. And he simply refused to yield power. Just like he refused to yield power when he was defeated at least 3 times in elections by Dr. Kizza Besigye, who, by the way, is a former comrade of Museveni himself and used to be his personal physician and fought in a guerrilla warfare together with him as compatriots that saw them seize power in 1986. But they had a falling out because Museveni obviously had his own personal agenda to perpetuate personal family rule. So they parted ways. Besigye ran against him a few times, defeated him at least 3 times. And Besigye is now, Museveni and his son, Muhoozi, they have their boots on Besigye's neck. He was in a military court and was ordered to be shifted to a civilian court. And basically he's being punished for having defeated Museveni in the past, and he's still seen as a potential threat to mobilize opposition going forward. So that's on Besigye. But more importantly, on Bobby Wine, who essentially is actually the legitimate president of Uganda since he won the most recent election. And Museveni just simply refused to yield power. So Bobby Wine could not be sworn in as president. So clearly, Museveni is concerned because he really does not have a transition plan, right? There was some speculation that he might allow his son, General Muhoozi, to run in his stead in the next election. But Museveni is a brutal killer and a cunning assassin, right? Who has been responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Ugandans, and certainly with his role in the Congo invasions, millions of Congolese. But he has a brain as well, so he's a thinking person and he strategizes. And I say this to distinguish him from his son, General Muhoozi, who likes his bottle of alcohol and has not demonstrated any level of independent intelligence. So let me come to this point. Why am I saying independent intelligence? Because it's obvious that the things that he says or does come from his father, General Museveni. So in the last few months, this unintelligent son of the dictator, the deputy dictator, Muhoozi, has been tweeting multiple threats about wanting to kill Bobby Wine. He refers to him as Kabobi, in his tweets. He's tweeted about wanting to behead him, and then he was supposedly suspended, or he took himself off of X, aka Twitter. He eliminated his own account, but then he was back after that very shortly, within a few days. And why is that? Because while he may want to really take himself off, I don't think he's stupid enough to not realize the consequences of these tweets, because these are incitements to violence and incitement to genocide. Because both Muhoozi and Museveni, they're not so stupid that they cannot realize that if somebody takes them on those messages that they're sending for somebody to kill Bobi Wine, that they would not face immediate retribution. Immediate retribution. Any Ugandan listening to me know how popular Bobi Wine is, know exactly what I mean. There's no way could these two domestic terrorist Ugandans just go on living their life as normal. It won't happen. So Ugandans know that, the international community know that, and the International Criminal Court know that as well. So why are they still tweeting? And I say they because there's no way that Muhoozi could tweet that he's going to kill Bobi Wine without approval of Dictator-in-Chief General Museveni. And the fact that Museveni has not ordered his son to stop, has not dismissed him from the armed forces, and has not had him charged with crimes of incitement to genocide, means that he approves of it. And if he approves of it, and since I already indicated that Muhoozi does not have any independent, original thought, it means these tweets are actually being produced by Museveni, communicated to his son, whose role is just to disseminate it now via Twitter. And I've made this point before. A few weeks ago, I made a similar a commentary, and I suggested that if they have not already taken action, sometimes people are indicted, and then the indictment could be sealed, right? There's no reason why General Museveni and General Muhoozi should not be indicted. And there's no reason why the International Criminal Court should wait until somebody takes them up on the threat and actually acts on that, not even subliminal message, clear message, open message. In fact, in one of the messages, the junior dictator, Muhoozi, said he would reward any soldier who kills Bobi Wine. Should I add anything to this? If the ICC does not take action, then the ICC itself is liable for the consequences of what might happen in Uganda. Should anyone take it upon themselves to carry out the orders that are being communicated against the life of Bobi Wine by General Museveni, Dictator-in-Chief, and General Muhoozi, who, by the way, boast of being a 5-star general. Those 5 stars, anybody can order that from Amazon. 5 stars for what? For torturing Ugandans? Torturing Kakwenza, Rukira Bashaija, the international pen recognized writer. Is that what he got the 5 stars for? So, sisters and brothers, obviously we need to end dictatorship in Uganda. And the Constitution is very clear about this. That whoever is involved in ending dictatorship would not have committed a crime under the Constitution of Uganda. Here's my final point. I believe that 99% of the soldiers and officers in the Ugandan military want to do good things and want to be good people. and must be very disgusted that the commander of the army, of the ground forces, Deputy Dictator General Muhoozi, issues those kind of tweets coming from his father. It's embarrassing for them, I'm sure. It's humiliating for them, I'm sure. It does not reflect on what a professional soldier wants to be regarded as. So members of the armed forces and the police in Uganda, you can also join the people in Uganda in ensuring that dictatorship comes to an end in our beloved country. Thank you, sisters and brothers. Reflect upon these words, please.